The fan call came at 3 in the morning, the kind of hour when nothing good ever happens. Benji Marshall, the West Tigers head coach who had sacrificed sleep and sanity to try dragging one of rugby league's most troubled clubs back to respectability, stared at his mobile screen in disbelief. The message was brief, clinical, devastating. Shane Richardson, the club's chief executive officer, the man entrusted with steering the Tigers towards stability and success, had allegedly sold the club. The reason, according to sources within the organisation, was even more staggering. Richardson needed to cover massive gambling debts that had spiralled completely out of control. This is not just another scandal in a sport that has seen its share of controversy. This is not simply another administrator making poor decisions or another club facing financial difficulties. This is a complete betrayal of trust, a catastrophic failure of leadership, and a reminder that the disease of gambling addiction respects no position, no reputation, and no responsibility. The West Tigers, already the laughingstock of the National Rugby League after years of incompetence and underperformance, now face a crisis that threatens their very existence. The West Tigers have been a basket case for over a decade. Since their miraculous premiership victory in 2005, the club has lurched from disaster to disaster with depressing consistency. Coaching appointments have failed spectacularly. Player recruitment has been woeful. Junior development has been neglected. The culture has been toxic. Fans have abandoned the club in droves, sick of empty promises and broken dreams. The few loyalists who remained clung to hope that someone, somewhere, would finally get things right. Benji Marshall was supposed to be that someone. His appointment as Chief Executive Officer was greeted with genuine optimism from a supporter base starved of competent leadership. Richardson brought credentials that seemed impeccable. He had worked successfully at other clubs, understood the intricacies of rugby league administration, and spoke convincingly about his vision for transforming the Tigers into a competitive force. The board believed in him. The fans believed in him. Benji Marshall, lured back to the club as head coach, believed in him. That belief has been shattered into a million pieces. The allegations that have emerged paint a picture of deception, desperation, and betrayal on a scale that defies comprehension. According to multiple sources within the club who spoke on condition of anonymity, Richardson had accumulated gambling debts running into the millions. The exact figure remains unclear, but estimates suggest the amount could be anywhere between $5 and $10 million. The debts were owed to various bookmakers, casinos, and potentially less savoury entities who do not appreciate delayed payment. Richardson allegedly attempted to cover these debts through increasingly desperate measures. He borrowed from friends and family. He maxed out credit cards and personal loans. He allegedly even dipped into club funds, though this claim has not been verified and would constitute serious criminal fraud if proven true. But none of it was enough. The debts kept growing, compounding with interest and penalties. The pressure from creditors intensified. Richardson found himself backed into a corner with no apparent way out. The solution he allegedly chose was unconscionable. Using his position and access to confidential information, Richardson reportedly entered into negotiations to sell the West Tigers to an unknown consortium of investors. The deal was conducted in complete secrecy, without the knowledge or approval of the board, without consultation with stakeholders, and without any regard for the legal and ethical obligations that come with his position. The only thing that mattered, apparently, was generating enough cash to satisfy his creditors and save himself from whatever consequences non-payment would bring. The mechanics of how Richardson thought he could execute such a sale remain murky. Professional sports clubs cannot simply be sold by a chief executive officer acting alone. There are boards of directors, ownership structures, league approval processes, and countless legal and safeguards designed to prevent exactly this kind of rogue action. Either Richardson was operating under some catastrophic misunderstanding of his authority, or he was so desperate and compromised that rational thinking had completely abandoned him. The attempted sale began to unravel when sharp-eyed administrators at the National Rugby League noticed unusual activity and inquiries related to the Tigers' ownership status. Questions were asked, investigations were launched. Richardson's deception started to crumble. Within days, the full scope of his actions had been exposed, and the fallout was immediate and brutal. Benji Marshall's reaction when he was finally informed of the situation was one of complete shock and betrayal. Marshall had staked his reputation on returning to the Tigers as head coach. He'd convinced players to join the club on basis of assurances about stability and direction. He'd worked brutal hours implementing systems and building a culture that might finally bring success. And now he discovered that the man supposedly supporting all those efforts had been undermining everything through reckless gambling and desperate attempts to cover the consequences. The playing group is reportedly devastated. Many players had been recruited specifically by Richardson, convinced by his vision and promises about the club's future. Those promises now appear worthless. The uncertainty about the club's ownership and future viability has created an atmosphere of chaos and distrust. Players are fielding calls from managers about potential moves to other clubs. Training sessions have become subdued affairs where everyone goes through the motions while wondering what happens next. Please, before we continue, do not forget to like and subscribe to Unpopular Aussie Opinions. Your support helps us continue covering the stories that shape Australian sport. The West Tigers board has moved quickly to contain the damage. Richardson has been immediately stood down from all duties pending a full investigation. Legal action is being considered on multiple fronts. The club has released a brief statement acknowledging serious issues while promising transparency and accountability. But the reality is that the damage has been done. The Tigers' reputation, already in tatters, has been demolished completely. The gambling aspect of this scandal deserves particular scrutiny. Australia has one of the highest rates of gambling participation in the world. The industry is enormous, politically connected, and deeply embedded in sporting culture. Rugby League, like other football codes, has extensive commercial relationships with betting companies. The advertisings are everywhere. The odds are discussed constantly. The normalisation of gambling as part of the sporting experience is complete. In this environment, gambling addiction thrives. The accessibility of online betting platforms means that someone can destroy their financial life without ever leaving home. The speed at which losses accumulate can be staggering. The psychological hooks that keep problem gamblers chasing losses are powerful and well understood by the industry that profits from them. Shane Richardson, if the allegations are accurate, became another casualty of an industry that creates addicts and then bleeds them dry. This does not excuse his actions. As Chief Executive Officer of a rugby league club, Richardson held a position of immense trust and responsibility. The decisions he allegedly made were not just personally destructive, but potentially catastrophic for an entire organisation, its employees, its players, and its supporters. The betrayal of that trust is unforgivable, regardless of what personal demons drove him to such desperation. The legal consequences Richardson faces could be severe. If investigations confirm that he misused club funds or attempted to fraudulently sell an organisation he had no authority to sell, criminal charges are almost certain. Civil litigation from the club seeking to recover any financial losses is guaranteed. His career in rugby league administration is finished, his reputation destroyed beyond any hope of redemption. For the West Tigers, the path forward is murky at best. The club needs new leadership immediately. But who wants to step into this disaster? The playing roster needs reassurance and stability, but how can that be provided when everything is in chaos? The supporters need reasons to believe, but they have been given nothing but more disappointment and humiliation. Benji Marshall faces an impossible situation. He could walk away, and nobody would blame him. The job he signed up for no longer exists. The support structure he was promised has collapsed. Starting over somewhere else would be entirely understandable. But Marshall has never taken the easy path, and those close to him suggest he is determined to stay and fight for the club he loves, even if that club is currently drowning in dysfunction. The National Rugby League must also answer difficult questions about how this situation was allowed to develop. What oversight mechanisms failed? What warning signs were missed? How could someone in Richardson's position allegedly act so recklessly without earlier intervention? The league's governance of clubs and their executives will face intense scrutiny, and reforms may be necessary to prevent similar disasters. The gambling industry will, predictably, escape largely unscathed. There will be some performative hand-wringing about problem gambling and references to responsible gambling initiatives that everyone knows are inadequate. But the fundamental business model, creating addicts and profiting from their compulsions, will continue uninterrupted. The political donations will keep flowing, the advertising will remain ubiquitous, and more people will be destroyed. This scandal represents everything wrong with Australian sport in one horrifying package. The normalisation of gambling, the lack of accountability for executives, the prioritisation of short-term financial concerns over long-term institutional health, the failure of governance systems, and the complete disregard for the supporters who invest their emotions and money into clubs that treat them with contempt. The West Tigers are already a cautionary tale about organisational dysfunction. Now they have become a symbol of something worse. The complete collapse of trust and integrity that occurs when the wrong person in the wrong position makes catastrophically bad decisions. Shane Richardson, if the allegations are proven true, did not just destroy his own life and career, he potentially destroyed a club with decades of history and thousands of passionate supporters who deserved so much better. Benji Marshall, standing in the wreckage, trying to figure out how to move forward, represents the best of rugby league: loyalty, resilience, and determination in the face of